Game development explained. No theory, just what works.
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down a really powerful framework for getting those projects that have just stalled, completely unstuck and back on the rails. If you've ever felt a project start to drag, trust me, this is for you.
You know this feeling, don't you? The energy is still high, the team is busy, everyone's putting in the hours, but something just feels off. Progress feels kind of sluggish. This quote just perfectly nails that sinking feeling when a project starts to drift away, even when everyone is working their tails off. And this is the question that gets right to the heart of the whole problem. See, it's almost never about a lack of effort. It's about this silent, creeping complexity that just builds up over time, and it strangles a project from the inside out. This is the real diagnosis we have to make. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to expose this silent killer of projects. Then, we'll talk about protecting the core of your project with a really smart strategic solution. After that, we'll walk through a step-by-step 1-hour turnaround process, and finally, we'll get you ready to make your very first cut. Okay, let's start by putting a name to the enemy. It's this incredibly frustrating state of being busy but slow. You know, your team is churning, hours are being logged, but the project just isn't getting closer to the finish line like it should. So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, tasks are getting marked as done, sure, but the overall to-do list never really gets any shorter. Every single week, you're adding another little exception, another small variant, another, hey, let's add this quick option. It feels like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The common diagnosis, the knee-jerk reaction is always, we just need more time, or we need more people. But honestly, that often just feeds the beast. The real diagnosis, the one that actually helps you fix the problem, is admitting we have a complexity problem we didn't even notice. And here's the fundamental conflict, right? Scope. It's like a gas. It will expand to fill any container you put it in through good ideas, edge cases, a little bit of polish. But your constraints, your time, your budget, your team's capacity, that's a solid, fixed box. And eventually, those two things are going to clash. It's just inevitable. So, what do we do about it? Let's get into the solution. Protecting the core. We're going to talk about a discipline called cutting. And it is so important to see this not as a failure or a sacrifice. Think of it as a strategic, surgical tool for steering your project back to safety.
So what is cut, really? It's the deliberate discipline of shaping your project scope so that it actually fits within your real-world constraints. And the whole point is to protect what truly matters, that core experience for your users. It completely transforms production from this grueling endurance race into an act of intentional, confident steering.
And this isn't just about randomly hacking things out. The framework gives you 3 clear, practical moves for your playbook. You can cut something entirely, just take it off the table. You can swap it for a simpler, smaller version that still gets the job done, or you can defer it, make a conscious choice to tackle it later, instead of letting it weigh you down right now. And this is why we do it. This is so critical. The point of cutting isn't just to make less work, it's to build a fortress around the most sacred parts of your project. Things like your core loop, your critical path to launch, the stability of your build, and maybe most importantly, your team's ability to iterate and improve things quickly. Okay, so where do you start looking? Well, the best, most valuable cuts are the ones that target that hidden complexity, not just the big, shiny features. So think about reducing all those little system variants and edge cases, or maybe narrowing your support matrix. Do you really need to support every single one of those platforms right now? Reduce the breadth of your content to focus on quality. You get the idea. All right, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? This next part is all about the how. We're going to walk through a concrete 1-hour process, and I'll even share a real-world case study to prove that this actually works. Here it is, a single 1-hour meeting that could literally save your project. You start by getting everyone on the same page about your actual constraints. No Fantasyland stuff. Then you brainstorm the biggest drivers of complexity. From that list, you decide on just a handful of high-impact moves, cut, swap, or defer. Then you write it down in what's called a scope contract, and you immediately tell everyone what's changed. It's fast, it's focused, and it's decisive. Now, the most important artifact to come out of that meeting is this, the scope contract. It can be a simple 1-page document, but it is your shield. It makes your decisions visible and it makes them stick. It clearly states what you are shipping, what you're moving out,
why you made that choice, and, this part is key, what that decision unlocks for the team. This is what prevents that scope from creeping right back in a week later.
Okay, time for the proof. Let's look at a real team that was stuck in that classic busy but slow trap. They had a ton of systems that were like 90% done, the build was super fragile, and their schedule was pretty much a work of fiction.
The before and after here is just, it's night and day. Before, you see effort was through the roof, but closure, actually finishing things, was in the basement. After just one of these 1-hour sessions, their weekly plan immediately got smaller and way more manageable. And guess what? Closure went up, the build got stable, and the schedule actually became something people believed in again. So, how'd they do it? No magic wands. They just made 4 targeted, high-leverage moves, exactly like the ones we've been talking about. They cut down on system variants, they swapped a super complex feature for a simpler one, they deferred supporting one platform, and they narrowed their content scope. See, they didn't cut the vision, they cut the complexity around the vision.
But you know what? The most valuable outcome wasn't something you could track on a chart. It was psychological. The team finally regained a sense of control. They stopped feeling trapped by a plan that everyone knew wasn't realistic anymore. That shift in morale, that's often the biggest win of all.
All right, let's bring it all home with some real practical advice on how you can start doing this like tomorrow. And more importantly, how to avoid the common traps people fall into. Look, this process can definitely fail, and it usually fails in a few predictable ways. First, don't wait until you're in a total panic to do it. Second, don't just cut the easy, visible features while leaving the hidden complexity behind. Always write down that scope contract to make the decision real. And finally, you have to frame these cuts not as a loss, but as a strategic win for quality and for predictability. So here it is, your first step, your call to action. You don't need anyone's permission for this. This week, book 1 hour with your team. Just list your top complexity drivers. Then, together, make 3 moves. Just 3. 1 cut, 1 swap, and 1 defer. Write it down and just watch what happens. And that leaves us with the final, and I think the most important question, the one I want you to take back to your team. Looking at your project right now, what is the one single smart cut you can make that would give your team its momentum, its stability, and its confidence back?
If this is useful, subscribe.
New breakdowns every week.